great. Welcome to everyone who's joining today. I am Anne-Marie Smith, the executive editor of datamanagementu.com and your host for this webinar today. We have with us the incomparable and highly well-known Dr. Thomas Redman, the data doc. And Tom and
Thanks for having me.
Oh, you're quite welcome. I'm thrilled that you're here. I've been waiting for a while to do this. We're going to talk today about something called the data generation. And believe it or not, regardless of your age, you are part of the data generation. And in the next just about an hour, Tom and I, mostly Tom, will guide you through what do we mean by the data generation and who are all the regular people that need to get involved. What is a regular person? So for a minute, I'm going to become the executive editor of DMU and introduce everybody to our webinar series. It's January, a new year, and we have a new series of webinars for everybody who is interested in data, which doesn't mean just data management people. And I'd like to say that the next time we meet, we hope to have even more people who are really involved in data. So what are some of our webinar housekeeping points? We have a Q&A section. If you have a question for Tom, please post it in Q&A. If you are interested in courses in data governance, metadata management, or data literacy, some things we will be discussing today, there's datamanagementeducation.com. Go there, wealth of courses, really interesting. If you engage in any social media, please follow Data Management U on LinkedIn, and please follow Tom Redman as well. He posts regularly on topics, not just for data people, but for regular people who are interested in data as well. We're streaming this live on YouTube, and it will be recorded and sent to our EWSolutions YouTube channel in about 24 to 48 hours. So next week, when you're having some trouble sleeping, tune us in, revisit the webinar. There are no presentations today. This is a discussion. So there's nothing to download. But if you stay for the whole hour, you will receive a certificate for a professional development unit. You'll get it in about a week to 10 days from the EWSolutions office administrator. Please don't ask me tomorrow, where's my certificate, because it hasn't been prepared yet. Thank you to our sponsors and our partner organizations for helping us to promote this webinar and bring people as knowledgeable as Tom Redman to you. And let me introduce my highly esteemed guest. I've known Tom for many, many years. He was one of my original mentors in data quality. I've read his books, I've attended seminars, and every single time it's been engaging, informative, and entertaining as all get out. I think you will have a really good time today. And without further ado, I'd like to start talking with Tom Redman. Thank you for being here.
Yeah, thank you very much for that kind introduction, Anne-Marie. I hope you haven't set expectations too high.
Oh, they're not high enough.
Let's have some fun.
Yes. You've been saying that regular people need to get involved in data programs. You've been saying it for years. Can you tell me what you mean by regular people?
Yeah, well, so look, I mean, it's a little bit tongue in cheek, right? So the basic idea is there are people with data in their titles, and then there's people without data in their titles. And so we're using the term regular people as shorthand for people without data in their titles.
Mm-hmm. You mean like my brother, the accountant, who works with numbers all the time, but does not have data in his title?
You know, one of the things that's really happened, and it's increasingly happened, it's this trend is just going to go on. But no matter who you are, you use data. And you use data not just in your work life, but in your personal life as well. And it's more and more and more. There is no job that I know of that doesn't have a data component and doesn't have a growing data component.
That's really interesting. I can't think of any place where we're not using data. You just mentioned that we're using it in our personal lives. I had to check this morning about the temperature.
Yeah.
And here in Southern New Jersey, this morning when I woke up, it was about 39, 40 degrees, and they said it wasn't going to go up much, about 46. Okay, so I knew how to dress.
Right.
I also found out it wasn't supposed to rain today, which is a real benefit because yesterday we had a downpour. But I know that I need that data to know whether or not I should be wearing a coat or whether I can just go out with a top and a sweater.
Right.
That data is important.
This is a really important point, and one of the things that I'm asking people to do is to see data in their personal lives, see the way it's impacting you. Like we all especially during the pandemic, where we had instances where we needed to know something, and the data was either not available or wrong. Everybody has a story, and so, well, like, I was doing this painting project and I needed a little can of spray paint, and I checked the website of the home goods store and it said they had plenty in stock, and and then I drove to get it and they didn't, kind of thing, right? And there's already this stress going on of the pandemic and home. Am I going to keep my job and so forth? And then, darn it, they didn't have the paint, they said. And what could have been a really, really good experience for the individual, it could have helped the company, the home goods store, build customer satisfaction, just turned into this incredibly negative experience. And one of the things that I want people to do is just see the day in and day out indignities of bad data in your personal life. I want you to see them in your work life as well. And I want you to go back and forth. I want you to go back and forth and learn from what's going on at home and what's going on in your work life, right? To reinforce each other and learn.
I have a colleague who has a posting called Crimes Against Data. And some of it is about work data and some of it is about personal data. And each time that it happens, it creates a little disconcerting feeling, either in the work situation or the personal situation.
Right. I think this is really good. There was not too long ago, we had a colleague who had, data quality train wrecks. And I mean, and that was kind of good because, like a lander didn't land on Mars properly, yes. Right? And, the wrong leg got sawed off somebody and all kinds of things like that. And it's okay. Well, those were big things. They impacted people, they impacted companies and so forth. But, you could look at that. Well, I'm not NASA. Right. I'm not doing that. Right. But bad data. And by the way, we're going to talk both about bad data, but also the opportunities to use it. I mean, these are equal opportunity things, right? If there's train wrecks, then there's also the indignities like you were just talking about. And on a personal level, those are way, way more important than the train wrecks.
I agree with you that they're more important to the person. When
Right.
I get a mailing and my name is misspelled and I have a really common name, so it always amazes me that my name is misspelled.
Right.
It annoys me. It makes me less confident in my ability to be satisfied with the vendor that's sending me this information, especially if I've had a relationship with the vendor before that mailing went out.
Yeah. Well, that's exactly right. I mean, how do you trust them to deliver the stuff you need if they can't get your name right? So
exactly. Let's talk about how regular people are part of the data generation.
So
what is the data generation? Who are we?
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Well, so one of the things that I've kind of, I want to talk about the data generation in a couple of different contexts.
Mhm.
One of the things that I've noticed throughout my career is companies talk a lot about empowering their employees, right? So we're going to, empower our employees, and, there's some really pretty slides and so forth. Here's the thing about it. I've never actually seen it happen, right? Okay. What I have seen happen is I've seen people empower themselves, right?
Oh,
People empower themselves. And what the data generation is about is people who, for whatever reason, decided they were going to get more involved in data, right? Maybe they were going to tackle a quality issue, right? Maybe they had some pet theory that if we did this business process at work a little bit differently, right, we'd get better results. And they go gather a bunch of data and do a little improvement experiment, right? Maybe they graph data in a different way, right? Maybe they demand that a politician tell the truth, right? So you mentioned that everybody's part of the data generation. It's not quite true. Everyone can join. And the way you join is you empower yourself, right? The data is important to my life, either my personal life, my work life in some way. And rather than just coming in every morning and dealing with these errors, I'm going to do something about it, right? And this is the fundamental concept.
okay.
You have more power at work, right, than you think you do. And you can, I mean, by the way, I don't care, you don't need an advanced degree, right? You don't need a degree at all, right? Like the simplest way to start is you look at the stuff that's come in and that you need, and you notice errors in it. Well, yeah, gee, how am I going to make those stop? Oh, I know. I'm a customer. I'm a customer for a lot of things. How do I handle those situations? Um, and and I want to build on this point. This is really, important. Companies have data groups. A lot of them do, but almost all of the real data management is done by regular people. So, people are getting the work they need to do their job. If you're a salesperson, you get data from marketing, you get leads data, and you need to follow up on that leads data. And the first thing you do is you check it and you go, oh, gee, that's not right. And you make the corrections. So half of a lot of people's days, right, are doing mundane data correction, data validation, kinds of tasks. Similarly, people are setting up spreadsheets, right? And so if you look at where is the data work being done in companies, right? So obviously, professional people with data in their title, they're doing some of it. But the vast majority, and I don't know, maybe it's 90%, maybe it's 95%, but the vast majority is done by people, right? Just in the course of doing their job. And importantly, their responsibilities have never been called out, right? They've never received any training on doing the work correctly. It's no wonder that data in so many companies is such a mess. Now, I just want to emphasize one more point, and that is, if you're a regular person, you can't solve the whole, the problem for the company, but you can take steps right now. Recognize you're a data customer, recognize you're a data creator, and in your span of control and influence, you can do really, really important stuff.
Do you
Okay.
have an example that you can share?
Oh, so I think there's dozens of examples.
Okay, one.
Okay, well, so sure, I'll take one, and this is an example that mostly is in the public domain. right? But it starts out in an investment bank. And the problem is roughly around know your customer, right? And so the people responsible for reporting to regulators get data in from the sales team that sign up customers and try to format and meet the know your customers, the know your customers obligations. And so what they say, oh, gee, I spend an awful lot of my time correcting this stuff, right? The first step they do is they make a measurement. They look at the data that's needed to meet the know your customer requirements, right? Then they make a measurement. Or the last 100 times we tried to do this, how many of them had an error, right? They count up, and it turns out, in this particular example, 65 of the most recent 100 had an error, right? That meant the vast majority. But by the way, you're laughing. That error rate is not atypical, and a lot of things. And so, okay, well, what's going on here, right? What is the biggest source of errors, right? So how do we communicate to the sales team that we need to get this stuff correct and figure out what's in it for the sales team? Okay, and in this particular example, right, that took 2 or 3 months. The next time they made the measurement, the error rate was down to 5%. Okay.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, right.
That's fantastic.
So, and if from a company perspective, companies are loaded with problems like this. Okay. And again, I mean, if you're a regular person, I sort of don't care what you do, right? You can take those simple steps. We provide what we teach our clients, but then we provide. I mean, you can go find it, a method called the Friday afternoon measurement that anybody can make a data quality measurement. You can do it in about an hour and a half. And it got the name the Friday afternoon measurement because, one guy said, well, we'll do this Friday afternoon measurement before we go for drinks, right? Friday afternoon. And
sounds like a good name.
Yeah, it turns out it works any day of the week.
Oh, okay. I don't have to do it Friday afternoon. I can do it Wednesday.
Sure.
Okay.
Another sort of example, I mean, this one's a little bit genericized, but and it's more in the data science realm, but like take a look at something that annoys you. And one thing all of us do is we spend too much time a week in meetings, right? And you're laughing. So, okay, well, then ask yourself the question, well, do meetings start on time? Okay. And if not, right, what are we going to do about it? I mean, is it a big problem? So the next 50 or 100 meetings you go to, just write down some details associated with the meeting. What time was it supposed to start? What time did it actually start? Right? Who was involved in the meeting? I mean, it kind of like, you start going through these things. Now, you cannot control when a vice president starts their meeting. But you may learn that, plenty of people start their meetings on time. And when you start yours, right, the meeting is supposed to start at 1:00. Well, you start your meeting at 1:00, right? And you can take back time in your day. This again, I mean, I know I sound like a broken record on this, but it is why I am so excited for regular people, right? Because these opportunities abound. And if you take the amount of, the amount of bad data you have to deal with, you can have more time to do your job. And if you take, time out of wasted time in meetings, it's just more fun. And it is empowering. And so, I urge everybody to do it.
Do you think that a lack of regular people accepting that they have some level of empowerment can cause bad data quality incidents, like a bank losing $400 million?
Yeah, so look, I don't want to respond to that particular incident,
Mhm.
but I do find that people are remarkably tolerant of bad data at work. Okay, and I'll pick on a group,
Yeah,
right?
okay.
And I'm going to pick on finance professionals, right? And so finance, there's all kinds of things finance professionals do, but one of the things they do is they complete the quarterly books, right? And so, if you ask the CFO, say, well, what fraction of your people's time, who are doing that is spent dealing with mundane data issues, right? The answer comes back 3/4, right? 3/4 of their time is spent doing that. And it's almost like they have systematized, right? Systematized and built into their work that, we're going to spend 3/4. By the way, this is a finance officer, right? Ought to be counting the pennies and stuff like that. And so if you kind of take the attitude, well, that's not what I want to be doing. I want to be doing finance. Right? So,
Mhm.
okay, how are we going to start whacking away at the number of mundane data issues we have to deal with every quarter? Then, you can do that and see significant improvements.
Is this data literacy? There's a lot of people in the data community have been talking about data literacy for some time. Do you see data literacy as contributing to this, or do you think it's much more? And if so, what is it?
Okay, so Ann, I'm glad you asked that question. And I want to switch from what people can do on their own to what companies should do. Okay. And the first thing that companies should do is they should recognize that regular people are essential. Right. So I mean, they recognize that data is part and parcel of everybody's job. And everybody needs to, to get in the game in terms of making things better. And I'm calling out 5 specific responsibilities that companies should lay on regular people. And if you don't mind, I'm going to read these because I
Sure.
want to get these right. But the first thing is that regular people are customers and creators in data programs. Let me just say a sidebar about this. It is observably true that people use data created by others and create data that is used by them. So people are customers and creators, right? But they've received no training, no guidance on what that means, no support in doing that. Okay. And so what we're really asking is that they become better and better customers and creators. Okay. Now you ask about literacy. I haven't seen a literacy program that has that in there. But that is number one, right? Number one is we expect you to do 5 things. Number one is this. And since people don't know how to do it, they need to be trained on it. The second thing I think companies should be asking them to do is people should be small data scientists in process improvement. Okay. And we gave the example of the improvement to the process around the know your customer. Okay. As collaborators in larger data science projects, okay, including artificial intelligence, digital transformation, and monetization. I was really, really struck in the last several months by some very much better case studies on where artificial intelligence is working or are coming out. And my colleague and sometimes collaborator on articles, Tom Davenport, right, has this terrific line where he says it takes a village, kind of thing. So you are not going to be successful with artificial intelligence, digital transformation, monetization, unless regular people are collaborate, right? And the expectation should be clearly communicated, and the training so that people understand what that means, and the support so that they can do that job effectively. The fourth responsibility is, as guardians of the company's data assets, especially in understanding and following privacy and security policy. Okay. the fifth one is companies should expect everyone to become better decision makers. And this is something I find really interesting. Everybody talks about, oh, we want to be data driven, we want to make better decisions and so forth. Well, where is it that you're evaluating how people are doing now? Where is it that you're training them how to make better decisions? Where is it that you're recognizing that sometimes decisions are made by individuals and other times they're made by groups? And look, I mean, a lot, this is the essence of what a lot of, the forward-looking things we're talking about are, yet the expectation is not communicated, nor the sort of benchmark so that you can tell how you're doing communicated, right? So the vast majority of regular people in companies, but by the way, I saw you nodding your head up and down. Okay.
Yes.
What's really interesting about those five is they are so incredibly reasonable, right? These are. Right. These are saying, we want you to get better at your job.
Yes.
Right. Okay. I mean, anybody, and the companies, people are so tolerant and companies are so lax, and people are, and some, many of them, not all, but many of them are looking for this kind of guidance. Okay. And so the vast majority have absolutely no training or background on any of these things. All right. And I see a lot to like in literacy, but what I would prefer that companies do is they be explicit about these responsibilities. And rather than teaching people to be literate, they should be teaching them how to do the jobs. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. And
Okay.
so that's a distinction. Maybe, by the way, I mean, a sidebar, I don't like the term literacy, right? Where I grew up, when you told somebody they're illiterate, it was a real dig. And I don't think we can blame people for not knowing what's going on in data, but so this isn't literacy. It's not like, learning to read Edgar Allan Poe and write essays and stuff like that. It is, and you're a customer. Here's what you need to do to be better at it. Let's do some practice together. That's the way I think about it.
I agree that there is an implied tone in the phrase literacy that seems to be dismissive and also unhealthy. I'd like to ask about those five principles. They were great. And I was nodding my head. I felt like the bobblehead in here. Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. Have you written about this? Is it published anywhere? And if not, can we entice you to write something for Data Management U about it?
So I think the answer to all those questions is going to be yes, right? So and I work very hard at putting things in the public domain, as
you do.
We've talked about before, and I've built some channels with Harvard Business Review and Sloan Management Review, and so these articles on regular people, on the data generation, and on these five responsibilities, those all came out in 2022.
Okay.
And they're easy to find. If you can't, then then send us an email or something like that. It's actually, one of them came out. But by the way, quick sidebar, I'm really encouraging my clients' HR departments to get in the game and help with the training and help with the customer onboarding, the new employee onboarding and so forth, and bringing the skill set into the, to the new, into the new world. So, but these articles are called Your Data Initiatives Can't Just Be for Data Scientists, 3 Steps for Joining the Data Generation, That appeared in something called My HR Future, and building better management systems to put your data to work. Okay.
Thank
They're
you.
they're in the public domain. We mentioned early that, you know, they're being tried out now, right?
Mhm.
We don't have hundreds of examples, but you know, but we're gaining some, our clients are gaining some experience in using these things. And it's, by the way, it's part of what makes me so excited is when you see the light bulbs go off in people's eyes that, right, really, I don't have to take this bad data anymore. I don't have to clean up other people's crap. I can do something about it. You
So
know,
that it's not dirty anymore and it's clean for both me and for people who follow me.
yeah, absolutely right. I mean, you know, by the way, the idea is so simple, right? And in practice, it is so transformative. Okay. And people, when they see it, they can empower themselves, right? You know, join the data generation in things that, you know, in ways that you just can't imagine.
Do you
Right.
see younger people embracing this? Or is this something that comes from a lot of experience and the school of hard knocks?
So it's interesting you mentioned that with respect to the data generation, right? I mentioned earlier that I thought a lot of people are remarkably tolerant of bad data at work, right?
Mhm.
Then when the pandemic came, the first people we noticed really joining were people with kids in school. And it was kind of like, you know, when are these kids going to go back to school? When are we going to get them out of the house? Right. But by the way, that makes sense. I mean, things around your kids, there's just a whole lot more energy around. And so, you know, so people, you know, in their early married life were the first group we noticed. But then, as you know, as we started seeing like people getting, you know, trained in some of these things on onboarding processes, you know, to people right out of school, it was like, you know, it was empowering for them. Okay. I think that, you know, mostly, you know, you get out of school and you go get your job and you're just happy to be out of school and making some money, kind of thing. I think, you know, interest sort of starts to grow after 4 or 5 years.
Okay, so at some point they become uh, divided between people who are data consumer thinking and people who are data purveyors or data creator thinking.
I don't know. I mean, like I look at the, you know, the people, and I mean, and it's very individual, right? You know, some people it was, well, they didn't have that pain. Right.
Okay.
One person remarked to me one day that, you know, we've ordered hundreds of meals out from the pandemic. This is the first one that was always, you know, entirely correct.
They kept going to the same place, even though the order was frequently incorrect.
Yeah. Well, you know, I think they went to a lot of places, but, you know, but that you can do something about it, right? Look, it's no secret that this great resignation is going on. And, you know, there's a lot of reasons that people are unhappy, but, you know, one of them is you spend half your job cleaning up other people's junk. I mean, that's just not a fun job. And, you know, so I mentioned, well, you know, you're doing that in sales, you're doing it in finance. I mean, if you're a data scientist, I mean, you do have data in your title, but, you know, it's 80% of the time is cleaning up the data kind of thing.
About that point, how do you see the need for regular people to get so closely involved having an effect on people whose title includes data, like data quality team, data quality specialists, day in and day out? How do they interact with this?
Well, let's take two things. All right. So first of all, I mean, let's take if you're a data scientist.
Okay.
I mean, if you're a data scientist, the first thing that you're trying to do is solve a business problem. So, how do you know what the business problem is? Well, the only way you can do that is you talk to regular people, right? The next thing you need to do is you need to get some data about that problem and understand it, right? Well, how are you going to get it, and how are you going to understand it if you don't talk to regular people? Okay. And then the next thing you do is you need to come up with, sort of like an idea or a model or something like this. How are you going to calibrate that unless you talk to regular people, right? And if you're lucky enough, to get something that works, is, well, how are you going to have any impact unless you get regular people to use it? All right.
Mhm.
And so, so lots and lots of data scientists are kind of sitting in their office and they're kind of going, well, just send me the data and I'll analyze it, kind of thing. Right. I mean, you're laughing.
I am, because
It'd be funny if it wasn't so
so
sad.
true. Yes.
Right.
Yes.
But if you're going to do good data science, you must be working with regular people. Okay. And so that's number one. Now let's take the person leading the charge on data quality. Okay. Well, you have two choices. One choice is you can say, yeah, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to put in a tool, right? And we'll run all our data through the tool, and we'll pop out a bunch of errors, kind of thing. And then I'll try to get people to correct those errors. And that is the way most data governors, most data quality people are attacking the problem. Okay. And by now they ought to be saying, well, gee, we're not getting anywhere. We're just getting more and more data, right? More, but the flood, this through social media and all kinds of things. There's just more and more data, and they're not getting in front of it. And so the alternative is to reach out to regular people, right? Help them understand these rules, help them figure out how to be good customers, help them figure out how to find and eliminate root causes of error, teach them, simple measurement, techniques. When they run into problems they can't solve, right? Making the connections and for them, and basically working shoulder to shoulder with them. And I want to add one other thing, and that is creating leverage for yourself, right?
Leverage. What do you mean by leverage?
Well, so I just mean it's like if you're in data quality, if your goal is to get it to improve, and you're working by yourself with 2 or 3 others, you got way less leverage than if you're working with hundreds of people who are actually customers and creators, right? So leverage is sort of like, working with and through others, kind of thing. And so if you're in data quality, you really can't get to the bottom of anything unless you embrace regular people. By the way, I think we can go through everything in the data space and conclude that you have to work with regular people. I don't see how you create a good data dictionary without finding out how people use the term, right? I don't see how you create a good data model without knowing how they use the data, right?
Exactly.
Right? It is everything. And so if you're in the data community, your choices are sort of like, keep doing what you're doing, or to, go out and start working with people in new and powerful ways, and creating some leverage for yourself, helping them empower themselves. I mean, it's way better. It's way more fun.
I've been in organizations, either as an employee or a customer, where a lot of what you and I would call regular people felt like they didn't have any influence, power, leverage. And that feeling was communicated either by the data people because they worked in their own little silo, or that feeling of lack of power was communicated by the regular people through the data people, and nothing really got done because it was just a situation of status, everything in the current state. How would you, with all of your experience, recommend that people try to break down that internal resistance to exercising, first, identifying the leverage that they have, and two, exercising it?
Yes. So far at one level, every single place I've worked and advised has been different, right?
Mhm.
But on the other hand, there's sort of been this pattern, okay? And the pattern has sort of been, various components of it were, and you're in sales, you've got to make these calls this week, right? And that's what you're measured by. Tom, sent you bad data, right? And yes, you spend half your time correcting it, but if you don't make those 14 calls, you're going to get dinged. And so you feel overworked, and it doesn't occur to you to reach out to Tom. Okay. A second pattern might be that, you do decide that you're going to reach out, except you say, oh, this stuff is in the data is wrong. It's in the CRM system. And you go to the IT person, right? And the IT person says, well, man, shoot, I don't create this stuff. I don't know where the hell it comes from. I'm just, sort of dealing with it, right? And so this pattern develops, right? This
Mhm.
pattern develops where you, to do your job, right, are forced to correct errors, okay? And so, well, what does it take to, to break that pattern? And, sometimes, you just may, roll over and say, darn it, I'm sick of this stuff, right? I'm going to do better and go read something. Or you may get a new boss who comes in and ask you about your job and ask you, why is it so difficult to make 14 leads? And you say, well, geez, I spent in half my day, correcting data. And so, the new boss says, well, that's kind of dumb. Let's attack it together, kind of thing. Sometime a new leadership comes in and has a new, a new mantra about something, right? I was hearing a good talk on the new head of Microsoft, and he take the attitude, it's not enough to do your job. You have to make the next person in line more effective as well. And that would correspond with our creators stuff. The last pattern that sometimes, comes to mind is sometimes there's just like a business priority. And the business priority is we got to cut costs. And so, we just can't afford to, keep wasting money like this.
Okay.
Okay. The point I really want to make here is that people don't come in and say, oh, what can I do wrong in the data space today? Right? They don't do that. They feel as though the demands of their job and push them in these directions. Okay. And these forces are powerful. I mean, if they were easy to break, everybody'd have good data by now.
True.
Okay.
The implications for people with data in their titles, with all you're saying, do you want to spend a minute or two to talk about that?
I do. I really do. I mean, I think that if you have data in your title, you can, you can react to this and say, well, Redmond's, gone off the deep end, right? I got to get this model for this warehouse out, kind of thing. Or you can see some opportunity for yourself. You can see the opportunity to create leverage for yourself, or just have more fun at work, right? I mean, the best thing about this, the best thing for me in my career is data is about human empowerment. Who would have thought me, like this statistician, like later on is in human empowerment. But here's the two things that you need to do. the first thing you need to do is every project must start with who do we need to get involved, right? And identify them and so maybe you don't need them all right at the beginning, but right, we're going to create a new data warehouse. We're going to create a new data dictionary. So who are the people that we need to contribute to the success of that overall effort? And you need to get them bought in and invested and clarity in their roles from the very beginning. And then the second thing is, if you're working at the program level, you almost certainly have to ask the second question is, how are we going to get everybody involved, right? Even if it's going to take 5 years. So, and maybe the answer is, well, what we're going to do is we're going to focus on getting this in new employee onboarding. And that'll that'll turn over, and in 7 years we'll get 90%, and whatever it is. But if you're running a program, right, you have to start thinking about getting everybody on board just as soon as you can.
Okay, those are great pieces of advice, especially for people in the data community who are probably a fair-sized portion of our audience. But the advice you gave about being regular people, because even people in the data community are regular people with personal data.
Yes, they are.
They have to recognize they have more leverage than they think they have.
It's exactly correct. I mean, like if you're, no matter who you are, don't wait around. Right. I mean, I hear people all the time say, well, I've been telling the company this for so long. It's, well, don't do that. Go fix something. Right.
Find out who can help you fix it.
Yeah. Right. There's a lot of things you can do on your own. Obviously, by the way, I mean, you guys provide training. This is my company, right? We advise companies on how to make it easier to get more people involved, the training they need, the policy kind of things that you need to get moving on these 5 roles. One thing, if I may, I'd like to come back in 7 or 8 months. Okay, so I have 2 mantras. The first mantra is get everybody involved. Okay. And we've talked about that a lot today. And the second mantra is data is a team sport, right? And we haven't talked about that, right?
No, we haven't. That was what I wanted to ask you about coming back to. So you're anticipating me.
Right. Companies need to make some changes, right? To make it easier for people to join the data generation, help them understand these responsibilities. And so we still have these things called silos, right?
Right.
That can kill data sharing. But I think it's good that we focused on regular people and what those and what they can do, and then what people in the data community can do with them and for themselves. But let's talk about data as a team sport. I don't know. And if the feedback here is awful, so we don't have feedback.
We're getting lots of questions that I've been throwing into this discussion. So the feedback has all been great so far, and we're almost done. So
okay. Yeah. So what are people asking?
They're asking questions I've already asked you.
Oh, okay.
Okay. I was feeding them into the flow as we talked, but they haven't asked the question I want to end with. What about your newest book?
Oh, yeah. Thank you very much for that. So my newest book is due out mid-year.
Mm-hmm.
It will be titled People and Data. All right. And here's what I've tried to do in this book. So I've been very fortunate. I spend a lot of my time working with clients, and then I've also kind of had one foot in a lab environment. And 3 or 4 years ago, I really started asking, why is progress so slow?
Right.
And by the way, there's plenty of good news in data space. Like, we got more data scientists than ever before, right? The opportunity is greater than ever before. But what I did was I worked through and and identified, the 7 most important restraining forces. And a lot of them were around people and quality. All right. And then what I did to create this book is I synthesized, well, what do we know about this particular problem? What do we know about that particular problem? So, so one of the things that prevents people from working together is in your system, customer is one thing, and mine, it's something different. So how are we going to, and I mean, that's sort of like the impact of a silo, right? So a silo buster is getting some shared language, and how are we going to do that? And so half of the book is really about people and empowering people and giving them these responsibilities, them empowering themselves, by the way, and giving them the responsibilities and laying out what they need to know. And then the other half is this data is a team sport, right? So how do we get a language on so that we can talk?
Tom,
Yes.
I've already received a bunch of responses saying, please come back.
Okay.
So let's talk about that separately and we'll schedule it. The title of the presentation, the discussion will probably be People and Data, a Team Sport, something along those lines. Look for it. I'd like to make sure that everybody gets the opportunity to complete this webinar and then go to their next activity, whether a meeting or work. Thank you for attending. Thank you for listening. Thank you for the questions that I was able to put into the flow to the discussion. Remember that if you stayed for the whole hour, you will receive a professional development unit credit, and you'll get that certificate in about a week to 10 days. If you're interested in further content, please follow Tom on LinkedIn. Please follow Data Management U. And I will ask Tom to send me the list of the articles so that I'll put them on Data Management U so people can capture them, because we've gotten quite a few questions on what was the title of each article. I'll get that. It'll be posted on Data Management U. If you are not a Data Management U follower, it's free. Follow it, and you'll be able to see what we were talking about. Please come back next month, last Thursday in February, which I think is the 27th of February. We will have David Marco talking about qualitative and quantitative analytics, especially those for data literacy. I wish everyone a great rest of their day. Have a wonderful rest of your week. And thank you again to Tom and Jen for participating.